Welcome to Higher Intelligence, smart takes on AI for the next generation campus. I'm JC Bonilla, EdTech Executive, Data Scientist, and Educator. In this show, we cut through the noise and decode what really matters in AI and all things higher education. So this is AI Explained for Higher Ed. Let's dig into it. This week, I really feel that AI made an incredible leap. And I've only said that 82 times in the past year. AI making an incredible leap because it really felt from my perspective, the AI made a leap in being more than a tool, becoming a teammate in my life, in our systems, in everything that we do. We are going to be talking about an open source chatbot, open software, viral thing that went out and is grabbing the community by surprise, and it's called Mobolt. It books reservations. It trades your crypto if you wanted to. It reads your emails. It's everywhere. Experts in security are kind of freaking out. So it's really, really exciting. Also, in the world of international politics, at Davos, we really had the world leaders, the who is who, being saturating us, right, with AI content. And what we saw, it's actually CEOs talking about timelines and disagreeing of when an AGI is happening, and one of them is wrong, and the stakes can be enormous, right? Meanwhile, we see incredible drops from Google, and we'll talk about what Apple is doing with AI. I have not said Apple and AI in a long time, by the way, so I'm excited to be doing that today. And throughout that, what we're seeing a big, important coverage and behavioral change. A lot of people are debating whether ChatGPT is still my prompting AI tool of choice. And many of us have switched to other tools, Claude. I'd like to use today's time to come and unpack why many of us are moving into other tools, and we're starting to see ChatGPT as a preferred tool and the reasons behind this hype. Today, I'm joined by two of my favorite people at Element 451, people who are living this transition from different perspectives. And by the way, they come here with strong opinions. Tai Fujimura, mi amigo from Manhattan, is the Chief Product Officer at Element 451. He is responsible for developing a software called Element 451 that is bringing AI native solutions and visions to campuses across this country. And of course, my incredible co-partner in crime in all things operations, Sydney Blozan, Senior Director of Go-to-Market Strategy and AI Ops, who is charged with an important task, transforming AI internally into becoming an AI-first organization. Welcome, Tai. Welcome, Sydney. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Wonderful to be on the show and talk Element, talk AI, and we're really in as you said, a unprecedented time, and it always has felt that way over the last couple of years. These breakthroughs come thick and fast. So I know my workflow has changed in the last 3 months with the innovations that have been taking place, and excited to break it down and talk about what that means for the world of higher ed as well.
Awesome. Sydney, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much, JC. Thanks for having me. I can echo everything Tai just said. I think Tai brings a unique perspective from a product. He's not only building an AI first product, but also bringing AI to his internal workflows. And that's exactly what we're doing on the go-to-market side. Over the last few months, it's been, I think every week there's something different. So I'm excited to dive into one of my favorite tools, Claude, and talk about everything AI that's going on in the world today.
Love it. So before we jump into all things Claude, let's just do a quick breakdown of maybe 3 to 5 news that are important. We already spoke about the first one, right? Mobolt, the viral agent that is freaking everyone out, good and bad. It's an open source AI agent called Mobolt, originally CloudBot. Seriously, Tai, in product marketing, why do we call these names? But that's another episode, right? It went viral last week and is equal parts impressive and terrifying. I basically have seen the use cases, and it's exciting to see how other people think about very creative ways to deploy AI. And Unlike ChatGPT or Claude in your browser, mobile lives in your messaging apps. So think about WhatsApp, Telegram, iMessage, whatever you use to communicate, right? It has what users are calling as insanely good memory. It remembers context and things that you said months ago and uses that in the context of the deployment of the proactive things that it does. That's the other thing that it's really good at. It's very proactive. It messages you first with reminders and suggestions. And here's the kicker. It has full access to your computer or your system. People are using it to book restaurants. One of the use cases that we saw, the agent, the AI, found out that the reservation was not available in the restaurant. So it itself figured out a way to go into 11 Labs, get a voice agent, call, get the reservation booking, and in any of those instances, the person behind the phone knew that this was AI, nor the user approved usage of AI voice specifically. So really, really exciting. Why does this matter? Yeah, it's different, right? And it's kind of very autonomous, but it really takes the aspect of proactive next level, giving full access to files and messages. The security industry is a little worried about this, right? For higher education, the part that I like to bring up is that there's an upside in automation. We're starting to see technology that takes automation to the next level. The downside will be FERPA compliance, right? And we don't even know how AI and FERPA really commingle, but what we know is that things that we need to address. So imagine an agent that has access to the student records and financial aid and systems, and how would it attack that? So Sydney, Ty, quick gut reactions. How much did you see this chatter on mobile, and kind of how does it make you feel? Sydney, let's start with you.
I was going to say I could take that first. I haven't heard of Moltbot specifically, but in terms of having AI do the work for you, the question that I have is this just the natural progression of where society is going? In the past, we've had executive assistants that would do all of this for you, that would have access to your messages, they'd make the calls. And for better or for worse, just like tools, they make mistakes or they have an abuse of power. So I think it's a natural, for me, I think it's a natural progression of where we're going, and where people are scared or maybe a little bit unsure. I think that there's that progression with humans as well, regardless of whoever is actually executing the task. I think the interesting part is going to be that barrier to entry, is a lot of humans would maybe stop at booking a reservation once they saw online that it was not available. So it'll be interesting to see the demand and the increase in inquiries as systems and tools and AI get smarter at removing those barriers.
Such an interesting point, right? Because executive assistants in the past could have stopped or made errors, right? And today what we have is these technology deployments that go farther, and they start making decisions. What made a good executive assistant, or the person who amplifies us, the humans amplifies? Are we bringing the same constructs to technology, right? I tend to believe that we are more forgiving with humans than we are with technology. But yeah, very interesting takes. Ty, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so it's fascinating. The Moltbot phenomenon is kind of, in my view, a product of the advancements that the industry has made over the last 12 months. So these things just would not have been possible previously. And a couple key ones are the connectivity to your services. So over MCP now, it's way more straightforward for an agent to be able to take action in the sources of truth that you use every day. The second is local access. So Claude Code kind of not quite invented, but popularized this idea that running an agent on your actual machine is extremely powerful, namely because of the kind of memory thing that you were pointing out, that if an agent can store this long-running understanding of what it's doing in just text files that live on your computer, it turns out that this is really, really powerful. So we're used to having agents that are running in these isolated environments where they have to kind of ask or go out to another system to get some memory or information. And when an agent is running on your machine, it completely changes the game. So that's a pattern that has been really emerging in the last year. And then the third, of course, is just the models. The models are so much better. If you try to run, things like Claude Code on year-old or 2-year-old models, they don't do as well because the technology wasn't there for them to be able to, ingest, interpret, and act on all this context all at once. So it's that triumvirate of things is combining into this experiment that is really opening people's minds to where this could head. I think Sydney points out a lot of good, concerns and questions that it raises. But for me, it's also just it's a really cool moment that we actually get to evaluate some of these questions, because these have long just been theoretical questions. You know, the classic idea of like, if you tell the agent to make as many paper clips as possible, will it start to like, you know, destroy buildings to get all the metal to build the paper clips? You know, that's kind of the restaurant thing you brought up is like a small version of that. So we have to now kind of grapple with those and figure out how we're going to govern and control these agents to make sure that they're behaving appropriately in these contexts.
The scaffolding and how the codependencies in prior technologies is fascinating, and I'm interested in the word experiments. I don't know if I like you to say more about why you use that word experiments. I know you're an intentional man, so it probably means something. But because this got done at a really rapid time, I think the developer is somewhere in Europe, and we're talking about a really fast deployment. But yes, it required access to endless numbers of data sources, so MCP protocols developed probably in the past 18 months allowed that. The development that we see on LLMs, the brains, the frontier models, is kind of doing the thinking, right? But all the functions and the use cases that are kind of emerge are fascinating. So is this an experiment though? Is this just, or the natural evolution? Just say more about what you meant with experiment. It's an interesting selection of what this is, right?
Yeah, I think we'll look back in, 6, 12, 18 months at this era where Moltbot was like a signal of where the agents could go. And it's a very it's something that requires a lot of setup. It's like really for technical people. You run it on a computer. There's people who are like running like a PC in their house just to run Moltbot, and then they're texting it from wherever they are, and that's not ergonomic. That's not a, consumer grade solution. But what it shows is that there's the potential for that to arise, so I think we could, in the very near future, we could be looking at a tightly packaged product that does a lot of these things, and that's just more, streamlined and meant for your average person to handle.
I see that. Let me move us to the world of geopolitics. And Ty, I'm going to stay with you on this one. I don't know how much you over-index Sydney on geopolitics, but my friend Ty, in his next life, he's going to be running for president of the United States. He doesn't know that yet, but he has my vote. My point
News to me, but thank you. Appreciate that. I'll take every vote I could get.
The World Economic Forum in Davos, what we saw is it's AI. It's what everyone is talking about. Shocker, right? So, from CEOs of Anthropic, Google, NVIDIA, they're all setting out the vision for AI, right? And they don't agree per se, right? Amadeo, CEO of Anthropic, with gigantic claims as he usually goes, right? In the next 6 to 12 months, all software will be, automatable, right? By the way, months, not years, right? And of course, here comes the CEO of Google DeepMind, which probably has the most progressive views on where AGI is going, and saying there's a 50-50 chance that we reach these type of levels, AGI, artificial general intelligence, where we blur the lines between humans and machines by 2030, right? So it's not a conversation about if, right, or when. It's just basically this is happening. Everyone has a different timeline, right? And what I think is important is that this tsunami is taking place, right? And the part that I've found fascinating, and I'd like to take your takes on this, Ty, is let's say that Amadeo, it's right. In 6 to 12 months, CS, right? Software development, it's all automatable, right? Think about teaching, right? So for our higher education friends, how do I teach code in classes anymore, right? Do I need to teach it? Or is it more about teaching software professional how to direct AI that writes code, right? So how to CS curriculum and experience will start evolving as this technology are putting tons of pressure on how we do work and whatnot. So Ty, as a product strategist and leader, how do you take these incredible comments that are taking place in, geopolitics? Yeah,
so I would say today AI is involved in almost all software engineering in almost all places. So to me, that's already the case. And what I would say is fundamentally the practice of engineering is problem solving. And there's nothing particularly special about any given programming language or any given methodology of how you solve those problems. the practice is using an engineering mindset and an engineering process to deliver some outcome for people. And, personally, I don't think coding is going to go away. I think there's going to be plenty of cases where people want to or need to code for the long-term future. And that's good. Coding is a craft, it's like, there's a lot of processes or, things in life that we don't need to do, but we want to do because we enjoy doing them. We don't always do things in the most technically efficient way all the time, right? We choose to do them a different way. Like, for example, we can always speak over the phone, we can always have a video call, but we still make the effort to get together in person because it means something to us, right? So that it's not just the mechanism or mechanics of what's actually taking place, it's the experience of doing it. So I think coding is going to fall into a similar category. So we're seeing this tremendously rapid pace of innovation, and the kind of scary thing is I think it honestly hasn't hit where most people, it hasn't hit most people's mindset yet and most people's daily life. So something like Moltbot, if you have a dedicated Moltbot user, they're really living in the future in terms of what they're capable of producing on a daily basis and how they can run their life. And, that's the top 1% of 1% of people who are on the bleeding edge of this type of thing. But like I was saying, as a consumer product, that will be available in the next 6 to 12 months where your average person will be able to take advantage of that level of power. And that will change society, right? The idea that there's this constraint on society all the time, which is that people do the work and people can only do so much work. So imagine how society changes when work is essentially a limitless resource. The dynamic or the consideration in society and government and how you lead people is not directing a scarce resource of work. It's directing this unlimited fire hose of work. And what problems are we actually going to solve? And what are we actually going to try to do? And what are our values? And what's guiding how we actually conduct that effort? So it will change the dynamic of how society is built. And we're seeing that. So we need to be very careful about, how we proceed. I think it's critical that our industry is responsible with the development of these technologies and is aware of the impact in helping to guide that evolution in society towards a better place.
That's such an interesting point because the construct of work, it's what's being challenged a ton, not the humans per se, right? And one of the important things, if you adhere, let's say, to management technology, there's these frameworks called RBG, resource view of the firm. And the idea is that work kind of gets moved with the resources that it gets fueled, right? And then resources are not limitless, right? So what we're starting to see is that there's a gigantic expansion on resourcing and how we can accomplish things. So I think you're on the money that what we should be honing in is how work is changing and at the pace that it takes place. I want to move us into a potpourri. Oh, go ahead.
Could I ask
Sydney.
one question quickly? Do we have the infrastructure, though, to have limitless work? Or is it just shifting the work from the manual tasks over, like shifting the work from the actual end user into the recipient? Is what I think is an interesting question, or I'd love one of your guys' takes on that.
But I mean, everybody in our audience, this is the kind of thing that we should take this podcast to a bar because that's the power of that question. It's such an interesting question because I truly believe that that's probably one of the limitations that we have in the construct of work, and is how we put guardrails on it, right? A lot of, for example, and I'm dwelling into strategic management things, a lot of the power of strategic intent. When we see the Japanese technology that we see today, right, it's not possible until post the wars. A lot of thinkers said, this is what we're going to come and build. How? I don't know, but it's just basically intent, right? So to answer your question, I don't think so, but it's just the limitations that we are self-imposing to ourselves. And some of us are starting to think of paint the picture and intent in that process. So the infrastructure, the boundaries, the agency that limits us are going to be shocked. And how? I don't have an answer for it, right? That's the part that it could be fun. What say you, Mr. Fujimura?
Yeah, I think that's a wise question because there is no unlimited. So basically all of this work per unit of work, it takes electricity, it takes compute, it takes, transmission. So there are constraints, but one thing that is unique about AI, that is the reason why it is a truly societally shifting breakthrough, is that it has the ability to improve itself and to optimize itself. And so I think what we'll see is that, right now the industry is racing as fast as possible to build as many data centers as possible to handle all of the demand that's going to come to utilize this technology in this way. But these systems are going to be able to help get those data centers built faster, to optimize themselves, to run faster, to be more efficient. So it's going to be a progression. It'll be like a curve up and to the right. So there won't be an unlimited, but there will be a point where it no longer feels constrained in the way that, in the West, at the very least, we don't tend to feel that our electric consumption is constrained. It certainly is, but in day-to-day practice, it's not a typical factor that you think about when you're, coming up with solutions to problems.
Well, speaking of solutions and how limitless or resources get expanded or not, 3 drops from corporate shifts that I think everyone should know about. First of all, Google announcing personal intelligence training, right, against their ecosystem. So think about how we drive in maps, how we listen to things in YouTube, how we consume things through shopping carts and search optimization, to train these hyper personalized AI assistants. Very exciting, very promising, and be empowered by the Gemini infrastructure layer to kind of generate different things, right? Very, very exciting, very different, and kind of getting us there. Apple, and I said at the top, I don't mention Apple a lot in my AI commentary, so it's exciting to see them do something. I'm being very disappointed what Apple has done against our AI capabilities. But the rumors of Apple developing an AI-powered wearable, an AirTag size, equipped camera, always on wearable camera microphones, apparently to try to compete with what I spoke on the last episode from OpenAI and their Gumdrop project, which is also a pendant or some type of a pen. So, but Elon Musk, not talking about Grok here, we're talking about all their subset of companies, talking about the launch of TerraWave, which is going to be using a similar ecosystem and kind of infrastructure to the ones we've seen on his satellites for internet, but in this case using AI training clusters that would be powered with solar energy. So you guys talk about energy is limitless. So sure, but now you kind of expand your horizon of constraints by using solar energy. So it's really, really exciting things out there. 6 months, a year, I don't know, but this is basically the intent that we're talking about. Sydney, as a strategist, how does this land in your world, right? So if you're always at the intersection between operations and strategy and systems of Google personal intelligence, AI wearables, how does this make you feel?
Yeah, I think I'm excited. I don't know if I'm the 1% or the early adopters, but having everything recorded, having things documented, if you're able to get it in an intelligent and digestible way, to me, anytime that you can get information documented and written down, it's going to be, as long as it's used for good, can help streamline an organization. And that is kind of the main part of our function of go-to-market operations. It's connecting product and marketing and sales and making sure that they have what they need on a day-to-day and a personal life too. Having a wearable, being able to document things, I think is exciting, whether it's a pen or a wearable device. And you're seeing that with the Meta glasses already.
This year, 26, is about physical AI. I think we start feeling, experiencing, and touching the first devices that would create this basically compute aspects of always on and always ingesting us. Ty, any comments on this?
Yeah, the key to making agents work well is context and data, and especially as we see the rise in how intelligent the agents are at actually interpreting that data. It's definitely exciting. And ambient data is always the easiest, because if you're asking, if you as a user need to provide some sort of input every single day, that's going to be there will be way more gaps. It's going to be way harder to be consistent and to have that timeliness in the data. Obviously, it raises, concerns about privacy and making sure that people's data is protected. And so that should always be emphasized in any of these breakthroughs, is that, we would, as a consumer, I want Apple to be a good steward of that data if I'm giving them that data. And especially when it's being processed by AI, that becomes even more paramount.
Love that. Ambient computing, physical AI, however we start kind of codifying that. I think that's what everybody should be preparing yourself to for 2026, I guess in the spirit of predictions. Let's move to the story that grounds today's episode, which is the idea that there is a shift in certain communities towards Claude versus ChatGPT, right? So ChatGPT versus Claude, the debate kind of it's been around, but has become even more impactful and larger in 2026, when we're talking only about 29 days. We're recording on January the 29th. And the verdict for developers is surprisingly clear, right? Head-to-head comparisons, Claude wins with kind of complex multi-file coding, long documents, context retention. The token window and digestion is even larger, so it's able to do more interesting things. So if you're an academic, if you're a lawyer, if you're an analyst, you tend to gravitate towards the utilization of Claude. That's why us three, we're probably migrated already there. I personally, for the past 2 weeks, I've done ChatGPT versions for like very fast, very transactional things, like reading things to my kids or playing around with them, but all things work and productivity, I'm already transitioned. ChatGPT wins on speed, I think, and multimodality, creativity, universal ability to kind of be everywhere, but there's something really special about Claude. Last thing that I like to say in terms of reporting, so from what I've heard, the cost of doing AI, it's very interesting. Claude's API runs about 1/3 the price per token compared to GPT models. 1/3, Ty. I don't know if you haven't switched, but you could save us about 1/3 of the cost if you switch everything to Claude, apparently. And for institutions running high volume AI workflows, I mean, the math really adds up fast. So ChatGPT used for brainstorming, visuals, and a lot of folk switching to Claude to do real work. Ty, let's start with you. True, false? You're building products for higher education. You're also a technologist at heart. You're doing a lot of things. Where are you at in this debate? Is this true? Is this not true? Have you shifted? Where are you at in this journey?
Yeah, so on a personal level, I enjoy using Claude more right now. The two models that I would be leaning on for my day-to-day work are ChatGPT 5.2 and Claude Opus 4.5. And Opus has been the first model that I feel like has really written to me in a human way. And
you're a tough critic for that.
And in the meantime, I've noticed that ChatGPT has begun to speak in a much more like robotic and formal and structured kind of way that to me feels very, it feels a little off-putting. So there's this kind of like emotional side of like, who do I want to talk to? I enjoy going back and forth with Claude. It feels more like a creative partner because it has that, when it's writing, right, it's doing so in this tone. It's better able to match the tone that I like to synthesize my thoughts and come up with new product that really feels like it's mine. So for that reason, I've been leaning more into it. The other thing for me, as a creative, the Claude ecosystem has felt really compelling lately. The addition of cowork is really promising. I love using Claude Code. I love running Claude on my computer. I love the interface. I love the kind of like geeky aspect to it, and it's extremely effective. So all of the players are coming up with these different form factors where you can put the model, and so that's not a permanent differentiator. Like you can run Codex on your terminal as well. But for me, the Anthropic ecosystem has felt the most like a product that has the feel, the aesthetic that I want to be using right now. But I'm a fast switcher, and like I would say with what you're saying on cost, personally, I would recommend that people not pay too much attention to it because costs change constantly. Every new not only can the models introduce new factors on cost, but the model providers can make sudden pivots and changes to their pricing structure that influence that. So I would generally lean towards optimizing for output rather than minimizing for cost.
Very interesting. Your time is up, Ty, as per the bell. But Sydney, you just recently told me I need all my analysts and team to migrate to Claude. So when did you make that? How did you come to that realization? Like, where are you coming from? Talk to me about your Claude journey.
Yeah, Claude has always been one of my go-tos. I've always kind of gravitated it for that human aspect. I think even right out the gate, it wasn't using the M dashes and it didn't have the same patterns in speaking as noticeable as ChatGPT. So right off the bat, where I think over the last several weeks and specifically even in January 2026 is the integration between systems. So it connects to all of the main systems that my team and our business runs off of. And then it allows you to analyze data in a way that I would teach an analyst to, where ChatGPT wins on speed almost every day, but I have to prompt it multiple times to get the information that I need, where Claude is a lot more methodical, but it almost acts as an actual analyst thinking how would the data need to be visualized, and then what are the anomalies? And I found that it will actually pick out a good amount of the data that a human would typically miss or ChatGPT would miss. And it will ask you, do you want me to include this in the model? Should we remove it? And if it's removed, it will typically give you that as a call out, as a footnote of XYZ was pulled out. So I think just from a business analyst or a data perspective, Claude is definitely winning right now with its connectivity to our systems and its ability to give me the information that I need on its first or second prompt.
Yeah, Claude asks amazing questions. It blows my mind. Like when we're working on stuff, it feels really way closer to actually going back and forth with a colleague. And so I've enjoyed, recently I was writing a talk and I had Claude just ingest all of this information and ideas, and we went over these outlines, iterated several different times. And I was able to enter a flow state in a way that I'm not used to when working with a model. One thing, so we were pointing out the speed. So another thing that Claude kind of struggles with right now is Opus will get interrupted a lot. So I've been kind of frustrated lately sometimes as I'm working, especially trying to ingest a lot of data. The conversations will get cut off, or kind of like Claude will just stop and then I'll have to rerun it, or it'll lose my messages. So, but all of those things I see as kind of temporary, road bumps in performance that Anthropic will be ironing out. So there's some things currently that I would still, go to ChatGPT to do, especially more just like nuts and bolts type of work, churning through a spreadsheet or, crunching numbers. For me, that's a ChatGPT thing, but that flow state work is a Claude thing.
If you come from a sector that, let's say, you're coding, you're a technical professional, you probably know of Claude, right? Although I had 2 students last week message me, what am I using for analysis? And when I say Claude, and they ask like, what is that? And these are people actually I train in Python. So not everyone is there, but there's been an affinity based on you're an analyst, you're a developer, and then you look at Claude first. 2 things that came out in your description of the why Claude is that there's something that happens in your day to day that goes beyond doing code, Ty, doing analysis, right, Sydney, that Claude starts to feel more real, more interesting. Ty, why do you need questions? Why do you need that, assistant that iterates with you, right? Sydney, why you need, speed to value, so could each of you, starting with Sydney, can you just kind of paint a picture? What is it that you do, right? Sydney, yeah, you do strategy, you do operations. Like, what the hell does that mean? Ty, you make software. You think of software. What the hell does that mean? So that we can understand, this is where Claude steps up and starts basically over-indexing in your preferences. And you can say, hey, I'm going to Claude. Because for everyone who's listening, if you're listening correctly, I'm convincing you to go into Claude. Yes, that's exactly what this second part is. many of us haven't done the leap because we even know that it exists. And many of us who we start looking at how we approach work, we see that the responses and the output and the outcomes that we achieve through Claude are more relevant and are kind of hidden on how we think good work is. So, Sydney, let's start with you. What is your day-to-day like, and like, how do you see Claude helping you there?
Yeah. Knowing my day-to-day, I'll even go back pre-LLMs.
And don't include going to meetings for 90% of your time.
I meet with JC and Ty all day.
Pretty much.
On paper, go-to-market operations and strategy, or a traditional RevOps team is realistically turning data chaos into strategy and clarity, and building process, hopefully streamlined and automated process for sales team. That's pre-LLM. I think post within the last year or so, it's really orchestrating the AI-powered workflows to drive that. What does that actually mean? So I work very closely with the sales and marketing team to help make sure that they have the data and the information that they need to be able to do their job. And where Claude specifically has changed that is its ability to analyze data, to be able to research our ICP, research deals, look at where lead sources are coming in from, enhance that data. So if it's a wonky email address or an unstructured location, to actually structure that data in a way that we need to operationalize it, where marketing and sales used to manually have to input that. Our team and the agents can actually do that for them, to allow marketing and sales to do what they're really good at, and that's speaking to customers and building really cool, engaging content for our prospects and our learners. A good example of this, JC, of how Claude has actually changed, and I'm a huge fan of Claude. Ty, I'll actually challenge you on, I like Claude for the data analysis, and I'll say for one reason. I'm still fairly new to Element. So understanding their data, you've been in Element for several years now. I won't out you, but several years. You know what you're looking for. You know what the field is called. You know how it's used, how it probably previously wasn't used and now it's reused. I'm still learning.
In other words, he created the data chaos that you have to clean up. That's
you probably did. Yeah, exactly. Or Ty created the data that he needs. So I'm inheriting that architecture. So having Claude ask me the right questions helps me understand the architecture better as well too, where it will say there's a gap in data
That's
here.
Interesting.
Or it will say there's an anomaly. So, we're still pretty scrappy. We're scaling, but we were a startup. So there's some weird wonky data in there for one-off use cases. So removing those actually gives us a clear picture of what our data and our sales and marketing team are doing, and the impact of that team that could be skewed with just one-off and interesting use cases. And a good example of this, JC, is the MBM analysis. So 2 weeks in, I was tasked with doing a meeting analysis.
And can you define what NBM is?
Yeah, new business meeting. So traditionally a discovery meeting, but it's a very first meeting with a prospect. So they've never heard about Element 451. They come to us, they get it. They schedule an MBM. And we wanted to look at what is the close rate of those MBMs or those hold rates? Where are they coming from? Who are we scheduling them with? What's the persona of the individual? And try to figure out, are we seeing patterns? Do we have the right people on those meetings? And how can we be more efficient? I didn't know what an MBM was. I know what a discovery call is. I work in RevOps, but how our definition here at Element and the nuances of Element, I don't think I could have done that analysis with Claude. Claude was able to ask the right questions, pull out some of the anomalies. It was able to help us scrub the data. I have a phenomenal team under me that helped me get up to speed, but Claude pointed out a lot of the gaps that we need to go in and fix that should have been fixed before. And it took the time, it would have typically taken me several hours to do that analysis. It did it in, several minutes for me to focus on the strategy and the process optimization piece, not just on the data and the visualization.
Love that. Before we go to Ty, there's something that you're mentioning that in my journey as an analytics manager, leader, managing teams of analytics, the difference between an analyst and a great analyst is the deployment of domain knowledge. They just basically guide themselves to mine the data, interrogate the data the right way, and then, of course, present it. What you just said in a way is that through that example, Claude has been helping the journey of the analyst, yourself or people in your team, to get there, right? And that's literally the divide between a normal analyst who can do stats and coding and visuals to a great analyst that you just basically use this je ne sais quoi to get to the data and interrogate it in a meaningful way. Ty, what is product? How is the day in product?
Yeah, so our job in product is to really understand higher ed, understand our customer, the challenges that they face every day in serving their students, where they are, where they're struggling, where they want to improve, where their opportunities are, and create software that helps them deliver that better experience for their students so they can take their institution to the next level. And so always in product, the crux is understanding the customer. So that's something that we focus on very much. And that's something that we use AI tools a lot to help us optimize. So I was going to give an example. Last year, I did a customer visit where I was with a school for 2 days. I met with 5 or 6 different departments, talking about how they use Element today, the challenges that they're facing in their world, thinking about how we could use Element to help them, optimize those processes and make their lives easier. We recorded it all. It produced, I think, like 10 or 11 different pages of notes and action items. And I was able to use a combination of different AI tools to synthesize all of that input and get it into our product system, which is Linear, is what we use for tracking our product management, and convert all of that input either into action items for things that we want to change, or feedback that's attached to another action item that was already there, or ideas that we're going to stash for the future in a way that it's even trackable back to that original conversation with that customer. So, the process of running product and being a product leader is an amazing fit for what these AI tools are capable of doing. And it's really taken this leap forward in the last couple months, where it feels like a true thought partner in the work. Another really cool case that's come up recently that I wanted to highlight is with actually pushing the limits of what our tool can do. So one of the ways that we use AI tools internally is we actually just connect it to our help center, which is public. All of our customers, anybody can go there, help.element451.com. And AI agents are really good at reading the entire help center. Like, no person can ever read the entire help center and understand it. And we also connect it to our code base, so it understands our code base. And we can ask it for best practices. So this is something that if you're out there and you're an Element 451 user, you can talk to these AI tools. You can give it your process potentially for how you run something. You can give it the Element Help Center, and you can say, like, how can I convert what we do today into a process that runs autonomously in Element with agents? Give me which buttons to push. Give me where I should go in the product. Give me the instructions that I should give to my agents in Element. Help me think about my org chart. How can I connect these agents with different parts of my school? So it's truly an amplifier to all of these different processes, whether you're, on my side in building the product, or whether you're on the user side actually putting it into action.
One of the important things that we need to take from this conversation, right, is that the reason why we're saying consider a shift is that we're reacting to how we are working and what we're doing, the use cases that we're trying to push, and we see tools that do things differently. Today, if you're trying to do the migration to Claude, you'll see that there's a Claude, chat instance experience that looks very similar to ChatGPT. I like how it writes better, but that's basically one-to-one mapping. There's this aspect of Claude code where people like Ty and our engineers spent a lot of time literally producing AI that looks like, Python scripts, or backend plugins, code base, documentation, all that kind of good stuff. But there's the third emergence of Claude that came in the last 2 weeks that is called Claude Cowork. And this is where we're starting to see these things that we like, that we just kind of talk about how it interrogates us, how it kind of guides us through the process, how it gives us domain expertise or not. And they're kind of, in a way, orchestrated. So I'll end with this example that kind of brought me into I'm so glad I made the switch. Last weekend, I needed to do a project, traditional ChatGPT, do the analysis, it runs the analysis, and then it stops and it says, would you like me to make a PowerPoint or a type of report? So if it senses that I am an executive and I'm going to try to generate the report, and it also says, would you like me to make a one-pager? That's as good as it gets. It knows that I need a report, and it needs to know it's going to be executive. In Cowork, what happened is when I created the prompt, it created a window to basically ask at the beginning. It knew it was going to be a report, so I just confirmed at the outset. And it ran the execution, and it gave me 2 reports. An executive version of a PowerPoint. I don't like PowerPoint, but that's what he thought I would like. And an Excel sheet that kind of had all the granularity of how I look at the data, because what he knew is, and he made a guess, and on the money is that not only I like having the TLDR that it's executive and I need to present it, but also the back end to see how it got produced. Mind-blowing, because that is those are basically agentic layers and aspects that are important. That it knows the goal, it uses the memory to understand who I was, it uses tools, and then it plans, right? Among this kind of loop of goal, plan, and act, you see this problem-solving aspect that we're seeing Claude being fantastic. Let's try and wrap up with applications of what does it mean to switch to Claude for higher education, specifically, how do we like it or not, right? So I'll start with you, Ty, because you're also closer to this, but some of the stats that I saw, and it's fascinating, they were presented on some of the research I did. 92% of our students are already using AI worldwide. So we can say all students are using worldwide. We're also starting to see that about 61% of the institutions have a policy to rule AI. So that means that 39 do not, right? So, all right. So now we're talking to, switch to Claude. And many of the advanced users in AI, they probably bought ChatGPT packages, programs, right? For these people who actually made the programs and made the leap, they may be OpenAI adjacent, because they were probably the ones opening up an education entity. So if there's a thing you like to leave with, and it kind of translates to higher education, what is the one thing? Like, how should they approach adoption? We're not telling them drop everything you're doing in OpenAI and move to Claude. That's not the message either, right? But what do you say to someone in higher education, a leader in this case, that it's already there in AI, and they're kind of hearing this from us? Ty?
Yeah, so my advice actually is kind of forget about AI as a specific goal or category, and think about it just like a part of these problems that you need to solve, these work streams that you have. So I would lean away from thinking we need to get an AI tool, we need to have an AI policy. AI is now a part of everything. So every work stream, every problem that gets solved in your institution in some way can benefit from AI. And it's going to take a combination of different tools in different places to accelerate your campus in that way. So at Element, we provide tons of methods for schools to automate processes using AI, but we don't cover every process. There's other things you're going to need other tools to do, and you're going to have to think that through with those teams. So I would advise people to think about it in terms of the use case, think about it in terms of the problem that they're trying to solve, and then really take a look at the technology that's out there and even the human process that's taking place around that problem that they're solving, and think through it from first principles and just go problem by problem until the campus feels like it's accelerated in the way that you want.
Super. Sydney, same question, but now the audience could be in higher education or just a team lead anywhere running operations. What is the message that you have for them?
Yeah, I think the message is that your teams are using AI just like students, regardless of if you have a policy or not. They're creating a personal account, which is probably even scarier than creating a company account. So I think my message is that AI is here, and I think we need to shift from having it be a part of the process to it is the process. It's woven into your operating systems. Your agents are like an extension of your team, where they're actually doing the work for your team instead of bolting it in. And that competition is healthy. Having OpenAI and having ChatGPT for certain use cases, having Claude for other use cases is not necessarily a bad thing. And we're seeing how fast it's rapidly evolving. Claude has kind of exploded over the last couple of months, where ChatGPT is taken the forefront maybe in Q4 in 2025. So having multiple different systems for different purposes, as long as those purposes are clearly defined and have the guardrails in place, I think is super important for a company to stay ahead, especially for AI native and AI forward companies.
Love that. Thank you both. An incredible half hour or so. I appreciate where you're coming from, and also, appreciate you guys' takes on this. So this week we saw that AI agents are growing fast. We spoke about Moltbot and showcase how powerful it could be when AI lives in your systems. Also, how real it feels or scary, right? At Davos, we saw leaders talking about how fast they're moving and arguably, basically putting their bets there. Speaking of bets, big companies like Anthropic dropping Cowork and Claude, Google with personal intelligence, and of course the Apple AI pin. So bets in AI are everywhere. The choice between Claude and ChatGPT is not about which one you like more. It's about choosing the tool that fits you and actually works for you. And for higher education, the message is simple. 92% of students are already using AI. The question is not if AI should be used. Sydney, you just said that. The question is how fast schools can build a smart AI strategy. Thanks, Ty Fujimura. Thanks, Sydney Blozan from Element 451 for the real talk. And this is it for this week. I'm JC Bonilla. This has been Higher Intelligence, smart takes on AI for the next generation campus. Until next time. Thanks for listening to Higher Intelligence. This show is part of the Enrollify network, home to the largest collection of podcasts in higher education. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. You can find more podcasts, webinars, videos, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe to get new content sent directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the AI agent platform for higher education. Learn more at element451.com.